In this video, I'm going to show you a more advanced task, which is putting an image in the background using CSS. This is useful if you're going to have a heading going over the top of an image or a button or any content going on the top of an image. This is an easy way to get around that. But you only need to do this if that is part of your plan of what you want to do with your HTML project. Otherwise, you don't need to do it. You can just add your images as an image tag. So this time we're not going to use any HTML at all. We're only going to use CSS because we are just doing this in the background. It's purely visual style, so we're not adding it as an element on the page. I need my image code again, so let's go back to ImageBB, right click and copy image address back here. So the first thing in the CSS is you need to decide what your selector is going to be. What are you going to style? Now, when we get further and look at layouts and columns and rows and things like that, you can add it creatively that way. You can also do custom classes, but we won't talk about that until later because it is a little bit more complicated. So for now, I'm just going to add it to the body. And the body, we don't actually see that in CodePen, but if you are coding an entire web page from scratch, you would have body tags around the content of the page. So if I put body here as my selector, it's going to apply to the entire page. So we've got the selector. What is our declaration? What are we going to change? So we want to create a background image. So we type out background image. Remember to use the hyphen. You can't have spaces within CSS, so that will be fine. Then I'm going to give it a URL to tell it where it's going to be. You use the round brackets and you paste in that link, and voila, we can see over to the right we have our image. Now, if I zoom out, we'll see something else very strange. By default, you're going to see this even more, just save it and we'll pop into the full page view and you'll see what I mean. See how it tiles? That's not the effect we're going for. It was quite funny when I started doing web design. Of course, we had very low bandwidth, and to create a big background, you couldn't have a 1 meg image. You'd spend 5 minutes trying to load the website. So we all learned how to create seamless tiling. It's very 90s, very early 2000s. Don't do it. Don't do it. So let's see if we can resize this image using CSS so that we don't have that effect. Back to the editor view. So within the same declaration, we want to give it the background size. And there's a couple of options here. We can say, the one I usually use is cover. Cover is a really useful one. So if I save this and we go to the full page view, see how it fills the entire page, and it's only when I get quite small that it starts tiling. So that's one that I use quite often. The other thing you can do, if you don't like that tiling look, you can say background repeat none. Or is it no repeat? Hang on, let's check this out. Does it work or does it not work? Whoops, hang on, stay on page. Let's save it first. This might not work. Nope, still repeating. So I know what I got wrong. No repeat. I believe that's it. Okay, try that. There we go, that works. I can see that just from the corner of my eye down here. If I zoom out, save it, change my view. So there you go. There's some of the, you don't have to memorize the tags because goodness knows I don't have them all memorized. Usually if you don't want something to happen, you say none. But in this case for background repeat, it is no repeat. So this might be what we want. The other option that you might have is contain. And that's where you want the full image there and you'll just have some space around it. Oh, that looks terrible. That looks absolutely terrible. So we're not going to do that one. So the one you probably want is cover. And if you don't want any tiling, background repeat. No repeat. One last thing that you can do with this, and I'll just save it again. If I change my view, go to my full page view, you notice that as I'm shrinking and stretching this, it's resizing from the top left. If I see how that's how it's resizing there. You can actually change where it resizes from. You don't have very fine control over it. You can't decide it's going to be like 35 pixels to the right or anything. But what you can do, and I'll keep turning off, turning off those ads. What you can do is background position, and there we might say center. And you can do right, left, all those sort of things. So if I save that, change my view, full page view, oops, and yeah, that doesn't look great. So I wouldn't necessarily do that one. We'll go to the editor again. Okay, let's try top center. That's a little bit better. And that should resize it where the center is the focus. It's a little bit hard to see with this design. But there you go. They're the ways you can add an image to the background. Now, another thing that you can do is actually set a background color. So if I were to comment this out so we can keep this in case we need it later. Oops, wrong one, sorry. Commenting in CSS is a / and then at the end of it, you put an asterisk and a / and that means that the browser can't read it. It's still there in case you need the code later. So we can create a new tag here and say instead of background image, we're going to say background color. And I might decide I want it to be teal. It's my go-to color at the moment. And there we go. The entire background is teal. Now use this sparingly. I don't recommend using it on a whole web page like this. It's very dated unless you're using it for a very dramatic effect. But what usually happens on websites is that you have sections of color. So often websites will use different colors for the background, but what they then do is they alternate backgrounds to show different sections of information. It creates visual interest by creating contrast. It indicates where you get to different sections, different topic changes, if you like, and it just keeps the whole website interesting. So if you are going to use a colored background, I recommend using it in that way, not as the whole website has hideous teal background, because like I said, that's really dated. That's the sort of thing that we were doing in the late 90s. So just to recap, this video showed you how to use images as a background, not as an image tag, and this has the advantage that you can put content on the top of it. So it can work very well in headers where you've got a great big hero image and a huge title. It can work where you want to have a button floating over an image or text floating over an image, and it's very useful in that way. Just do be aware, it's a visual style, it's not content on the page, so you can't add an alt attribute, and it's effectively invisible to screen readers. So you don't want to be putting any informative content into an image background. When you learn how to do layouts, it will work a lot better. Currently, you only know how to add it to the whole background of the web page, or you can add it to an H1 or H2 or paragraph, but it will look awful if you do that. So just keep this knowledge in the back of your head until you do the layouts, and then you'll be able to apply it to different rows, different sections, different panels, and you'll have a lot of success with that.